I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And since the two committee members, it's me and Victor Ney. Victor, would you mind a motion on whether or not to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And I can't hear anything from Media Center. You guys aren't muted now, are you?
Can you hear it?
Okay, you can. Somebody rustle some papers or something.
It sounds very muted.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah. Okay, so Victor has moved to approve the agenda. I'm seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Ms. Cushenberry, do we have any public comments? You guys still sound. Say something, say a sentence. Nope, can't hear you. I'm hearing bits of conversation. Can you hear him, Victor?
No, it sounds very muffled, very muted.
Yeah. Okay, it's not just me then. Because I hear you great.
We're working on it.
That sounded good.
Phone on the case there.
Changed it, I don't know why.
Yeah, now you guys sound fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
That was
Yep, now you guys are fine. Any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes of November 20th, 2023 and March 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So from here on, Mr. Shohan, do you have something to present? We had talked about with work process automations, I called it, on the fly.
For the word process automations, no, I don't. We have been working with Coach Cave, our athletic director. We were starting with the sports side of it, and we started identifying some of the different forms. We're going to have to develop some ways because there are doctor signatures and other things like that. So it's going to have to be in some kind of document management suite. We have not had a chance to have a follow-up meeting with Coach Kane and Miss Beckenbarsky. We were hoping that would happen last week, but unfortunately I was out with my wife's surgery for most of last week working remote. So we did miss that opportunity. So I'm hoping by our next meeting, we will have some more information on digitizing more of our forms.
Okay. Well, just as a little bit of background for the board members that are here, we've been talking about, and this is something that as a parent, I've noticed a lot, and as a board member, the paperwork is very much still by hand. It's scanned in, it's manually data entered, and it has to be re-entered over and over again. And so I talked to Mr. Shohan about, is there some way to start looking at how we can take some of the administrative burden off of staff by having online processes for some of these things? And then, right, you know, in the current tech environment, it's so easy once you get that information in the system to automate tasks, to automate, you know, different things. So kind of hoping to start seeing some push in that direction, because as a parent, it's a nightmare. And I think for staff, it's a lot of extra work that we could probably take off their shoulders. So maybe something we can talk about next time, do you think? Or
Absolutely, because not only will it help with the initial parents filling out the forms, but for the school itself, when it needs to go back and look for that information, it's not looking through filing cabinets full of paper.
well, and we have so many multi-step processes to have that kind of automation where it's not getting, I know that it's a complex network of essentially paper files, but if it gets stopped at any one process and gets dropped, the whole thing then can fall apart. So, and you want to start with, let me open this up to the other board members for just a minute though, because there's two questions that have come up in this conversation. One, every school, every teacher, every sport can have their own process. Is that correct? We don't have a district standard?
We don't have a definitely district standard. We have a base form, and then each school customizes it just a little bit, usually with their logo and graphics and maybe a couple of little sentences. But we do have a base form, but the schools customize it. And unfortunately, sometimes they take it a little far.
Because it's my understanding that some of the schools, you can get this online. Did you find, because you did a little bit of research, right?
Yes, there are some of the forms out there, some of the basic ones. We use Jot forms for a lot of those. Pretty easy to set up, and we did buy the Jot forms with the HIPAA compliance that our nurses use. It's a upgraded version with better encryption.
Okay. So I think, one question is, when you look at doing anything with data and automation, it's got to be standardized. Otherwise, we're just back where we started. So the question is would there be support or interest from the board in looking into how we standardize some of these processes? And, personally, registration is an absolute disaster every year at, the schools that my kids have registered. I'm not sure, I can't speak for everybody else's process, but, it's reinventing the wheel every year. It's an hour in line. It's the same thing. So some of these things, I think it would be worthwhile to look at how we can say, here's what's required, here's what, and you can have the school branded a little, but it feels very much sort of like when the principal changes, the process changes. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but as a parent and as a board member, the lack of standardization, I don't love, but some people may like schools being able to do their own thing. Any comments from the crowd?
Well, I think if we move the standardization to the district level, then we have to have district management of it. Right now, with each process being unique, if you want to call it unique to the school, or at least mostly unique to the school. Right now, somebody at the school is managing the process. So it puts the burden on the school to manage it. If we move it to a standardized district form, policy, website, and then you select what school you're enrolling in, that kind of stuff, then somebody at the district needs to manage that.
Do you see that as a pro or a con?
Yes. Because I mean, first of all, do we have the structure to put at the district level to manage it? But it's that would be the con. Obviously, the pro would be the standardization of the whole thing, and that would alleviate somebody at the school having to do it. So I don't know, maybe by removing, what do we have, 31 schools, 32 schools, I don't know if that's an ancillary job for somebody, if that's a vice principal that's responsible for doing that, or the counselor do it, counselors. But if it removes some of those responsibility, and it's worth putting at the district level, then it's worth looking into. But right now, it seems like that might be the. And do we have the infrastructure, like as far as the program wise, like software infrastructure to support it?
Excellent questions. Colonel Gar, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Madam Chair. I was at Beaufort Middle School a couple weeks ago, and they showed me an automated program that they have used or started up to class scheduling. Which, in middle school and high school is a challenge because you're going to different classes. And I asked them, I said, well, where did you come up with that? And they said, well, they developed it themselves. Well, every middle school and high school has the same challenge. And that seems to me, I don't know if they would share or if there's some process to share, but it seems like that's a lot of work. And we do have some teachers that go from one school to the other, especially in middle school and high school. And then to come into a different school and learn a different process is kind of productive. So some of those things, I think that, we could have a group of principals come together and say, okay, what do you use for school scheduling? What do you use for tracking health, your students' health issues and so on? And if we're doing it in 33 different ways, that seems somewhat wasteful to me. And it would seem to me that, we want them to be individualized, but at the same, we want to be efficient. And I don't know that we're efficient. And I think we are maybe too individualized.
Yeah,
Right.
I would,
That's
that's
just-
my impression from a distance for sure. There's efficiency, I think, to be gained. I know it comes at the cost of the district. And then some people like the schools to have their own individual process that goes to school culture. So I'm a data tech person. I want it all standardized and organized and coded. But I may be too far in that lane. But I think, I don't know, this may be too operational and less policy. We do have a policy on data in our OE as far as how we want the district to use data. Part of the advantage, I think, too, to having it at a district level is I don't feel like, and Mark, I'd like you to pipe in if you have any thoughts on this. We don't really seem to capture much longitudinal data, year to year, school to school, that we can use to predict outcome, do outcome management types work. And I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, but it seems like as we prepare for more AI, more data type things coming down the pipe, we should have longitudinal records. And I know we have Power School, which certainly has the capability to do it. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I would agree, especially with AI right now, there's a lot of advancements being made to how it can interpret a lot of this data and make those predictions we're looking for. It can also aggregate a ton of disparaging data. And that's the hardest thing for people to do, is to take disjointed data and merge it together to try to develop those outcomes. So I definitely think there is plenty of rooms for improvements. And I mean, even on some of the school customization, we already do it on our enrollment forms. You click a drop down and you pick your school. You don't have to have your school logo. You don't have to have your school motto. The district is getting a brand new logo right now, so that should be the logo for these district style forms. And it might take a little bit of the personalization away from the school, but a school culture is not really developed on forms. It's developed on personality and the people. So I think our school culture can survive with a little bit of standardization.
Well, the other thing that happened to me a couple years ago was that the one data entry person for the school was unavailable for the summer due to some other stuff, and it shut the whole process down. There was no cross training, there was no redundancy. Everyone just kind of was on hold for weeks, in terms of registering. So it seems like in 2024, there might be a better way to do it. So I'm not sure, because I'll tell you, with this technology committee, I feel like that is the push that needs to happen, is we need to get our data organized, integrated, centralized, more so. I'm not saying we go full on, but I feel like from the position we're at right now, we can't take advantage of a lot of the stuff that's coming online. And also the board, we've had many conversations where we really, I think, want to see longitudinal data and outcomes. And I was looking at Power School, and they have a program headed to. So we're not using Naviance, right? Which is Power School's college guidance, like when you're applying to college. We used to use that.
We did use it for a couple of years, but I can't think of the name right now. But the state offered another program to do something similar that we're using. It might be the Power School program. I would have to talk to data services. That's in their wheelhouse, but I'll check on that one.
Who runs data services?
Nick Flowers.
Okay.
Mrs. Boyd, before you get too far gone, Mr. Dallas, he did have his hand approved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't even see that. Dallas, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you joined. Please. And thank you, Mr. Smith.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Madam Chair, I support the standardization. Normally, if you look at the 31, 33 schools, if each of them has the replication of human resources and separate systems, that is a lot of expense that is baked into the system, and standardization would take care of that. It also would improve the ability to do not only longitudinal analyses using that data, but also comparative analysis of, if someone has a different methodology that they're using currently, if we could sort of migrate those to what are the best in class, and then you standardize, now the whole system has been elevated. So I think there's a tremendous amount of benefit to standardization. Now, I don't know, but I think the culture is to allow a lot of autonomy by school. And I think standardization, if we were to rapidly identify and expand what is successful in one school, if we had the mechanisms, the technology to do that very quickly, I think we could help elevate our scores a lot faster. And that includes instruction as well.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. And I do think, one thing our district is missing, and I'm not saying we try to hire, but we don't have, for a district of this size, not to have a CIO, I think we have a head of data services who has an educational background and does a great job presenting data, but we don't have a chief information officer. And a lot of districts have moved to that. And I think, we're a big enough district that we could look at that, but that's probably a conversation for another time. So I guess my question then to the group on this first issue of standardization is.
Just for clarity.
Yeah.
Actually, we do have a chief information officer in terms of her title is different. And I believe that would be Candace Brutus. Our Candace Brutus, and her term is I think she's the she's communications. Right, she's the communications director. But within that, basically, that's the same title that you're talking about, because that title, it works directly with the superintendent. So what that looks like to what she's doing, it would just need to look and see what she's doing and then see what the actual function that you expect of that position is. But I do believe that we do have that position. We do have that position. We do have that position here at district office. And also, just to get into this conversation as well, with this what we're discussing right now is update on the working processes. What does that look to me? That question comes to me, even though y'all may have already discussed that. What does that look like? I mean, to what degree? Because to me, that's a little broad.
Right. You're talking about the workflow automation process on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what we're discussing?
Yeah, I kind of was, because Mr. Shohan, we've been talking about bringing forward an initial attempt at what that might look like just in terms of athletic paperwork. But Mr. Shohan is not ready to present today. So then I was kind of pulling into more of a philosophical discussion, because I don't want to get too operational. I want to stay at a policy level. But there are two things, I think, to workflow process automation. Number one is you've got to standardize your data, right? You got to standardize processes. You can't automate something if 35 schools each have their own process. So that's where the standardization, and I just wanted to get a feel from the board if they agreed on, because I'm very pro standardization. So I wanted to hear other viewpoints and see if the board was kind of on the same page in terms of maybe looking at how can we standardize our processes a little bit more. So that was the first part of that discussion. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and also, and I will say that is something I've been saying for the last 10 years now. That I do agree that in terms of the process in which I've been talking about, that we do need to have processes starting from the district that come from the district level in terms of what it looks like, as into what Mr. Guy was just talking, what he was just alluding to about the administrators fixing schedules. We should have something across the district that is district friendly and people friendly, to when systems that everyone in the district should be able to operate and they should be able to use, and that one administrator should be able to go to another school and be able to, as though a power school, everyone has sign in for power school, and everyone have access to power school in terms of administration and staff are part of the district. And they can go from one school to the next, and they do that. It should be the same with those schedules, different things, so that if an administrator move in the middle of the year or something else, then they can go in there and access that, and they don't have a learning curve, and that everything is standard. Because what I've just learned here recently is that even in terms of the guys department, it seems as though there's not a process in terms of helping in terms of doing senior scholarship. So being that there's not every school has its own mechanism or have its own way of operating in terms of what that looks like, then you know, and it didn't. I just say it didn't help out one of our seniors. So I think having that, and also having it being one program, like everyone said, I think it will save us money and it will save us a lot of time and a lot of headaches. I think that should also be driven from district level, because that's why we have.
Mr. Campbell, you haven't spoken yet.
I agree with Carlton. I think that's what we should do. Because like I think Mr. Smith talked about, every school want to do their own thing. And if you have it coming from the district, I think it would be better. Thank you.
Thanks for that. So it sounds like, for as far as standardization goes, that the board's in agreement, and the board members here, obviously there's still more discussion to have. So my question then would be, do we, and Robin, I've pulled up the policy. I don't think we have the revised OEs in our manual yet. But we do have in our OE an operational expectation regarding data that I can pull up here. Or do we, does anyone have a recommendation? Because I feel I'd like to come out with some action to Mr. Carlton Dallas's point. We'd like to move in this direction. I think if that's the board's kind of approach, what would be the right thing? What kind of motion could come out of here? Either a motion relevant to OE 17 and sorry, let me pull up the data thing here. I had it. And this is the one that has been approved, where it says provide a means for, oh no, that's not it. Hold on. Well, I don't have it on this version, apparently. There is Robin, you don't happen to have the approved OE 17 handy, do you?
I'm ready to pull it up, but if you move on forward.
Oh, here it is. OE 17C, provide easily accessible, relevant, and current data to the appropriate users to direct school and instructional improvement planning. So I feel like that kind of falls under the OE. On the other hand, it could be something that we could look at with like a policy committee, just because, or have a motion coming out directing the superintendent to look at possible avenues for standardizing student data across schools. So I'm open to suggestions.
Ms. Boatwright, I think your latter suggestion would probably be the best. Directing the superintendent to come up with to look into it. Look, I think the CIO is probably not doable for this budget year coming up, but look at the process or look at the circumstances and what the best way to meet the OE is. And I think it might be looking into a CIO, which is different than a communications officer, by the way.
Yeah, chief information officer, they're talking about data management, rules surrounding it. Okay, let me think. Let me see if I can come up with a motion. The other thing that's part of this, though, too, is the longitudinal aspect of data. If we have things on paper, we don't have a longitudinal record of students, right? So once we get things, we need to get all the data integrated. We need sort of, and we're still using PowerSchool for some stuff, right, Mr. Shohan? Because I know I still get notifications.
That is correct.
What do we use? Is that just our learning information management system?
Yes, it's the SIS, the Student Information System. Google is our LMS. Google, but we use it mainly for registration, grades, and oh crap, there's another module.
Attendance.
It just slipped off.
Well, it could have been worse.
I used to be around the kids. I'll get that information for the last piece of software from PowerSchool.
Just to charm in this conversation, you said that I just want to go back. You said it was the Mr. Nay. You said the CIO. What was it? Now those abbreviations. You said that there was a difference between the communications officer and the
Correct.
And what was the other one? What were the two officers?
We were talking about the chief information officer versus the chief communications officer.
And
Dr. Gruder is.
Go Go ahead.
Dr. Breeder is the communications officer. Her job is messaging. So she's in charge of the messaging for the district. So any interaction with public messaging. She's the one who her office handles all queries from all media, and then any messages that go out from the school to the parents. You probably, because I'm not sure if you get them, but because I have a daughter in school, anytime there's a school lockdown anywhere across the district, I get a text message. This school's on lockdown. That school's on lockdown. All that messaging originates from the communication office. Information office is handling data, not messaging.
Okay, and saying that actually, any information that goes out from FOIA or any other thing of that nature, I believe that also goes through Mrs. Bruder's office as well. So
correct, and through Mrs. Cartledge.
Right, because she looks over the information that goes through FOIA, and so my question is, in doing this, are we also asking the district to create another position? Because I want to be clear and precise about exactly what we're asking for, or what we're saying exactly. We're saying that we see the district needs. So I want to, so we're saying that I want to make sure that we're not asking them to create something else differently from what they already have, or that they can add on to the task at hand. Because we already have a lot of people here who do a large amount of work here. And so, and we have some people here who may do a quarter of some work. So I want to be precise exactly what we're saying, and get some the nuts and bolts of it, so that I understand as a board member what we're asking for from this committee.
Yeah, well, and we're not, I think Mr. Ney is correct that this is too late in the budget cycle to be like, hey, we direct the superintendent to hire a CIO. CIO is a pretty, it usually works hand in hand with the CTO, which is Mr. Shohan. The CTO handles the nuts and bolts of the network, and then the CIO handles information traveling on that network and sort of what software and how that's managed and presented and visualized. So it's a pretty common corporate term. I think Candace would be the CCO, the Chief Communication Officer. So when you say CIO, it really relates to data and how that data is managed. And one thing that I thought was interesting with Power School, and I just wanted to tell the board about it a little bit, is they have a modules. Now, we're not in charge of picking out software and whatnot, but if you were to use something like Power School, they have Naviance, which was okay. It's the college management, but they also have Headed To, which does longitudinal data management for career readiness. And it actually looks at each state and does analysis on where job opportunities are, industries most in demand, and matches up like students' proficiency. So it's sort of a CATE companion piece to the college, which to me is something we should really be investing in, because we're really investing in CATE education. And I don't know what the percentage is. I know nationally, I think it's something like 14% of kids go to college. I don't know if anyone knows off the top of their head what Beaufort County's average four-year college rate. I'm guessing it's closer to 30-40% go on to four-year colleges, but that's still a lot of kids that could use some additional, and we could kind of track how they're doing. And we've talked about that in the board meeting. So this would be an example of the role of a CIO, would be to be looking at these sort of longitudinal data records on students. Robin, I posted in a rough draft of a motion, and you all know how good I am at motions. So yeah. Yeah, the technology committee is going to recommend to the Board of Education to direct like that.
Yes.
Okay, if you would add that in for me, that would be much
Yes.
appreciated.
And also, Ms. Boyd, while you're talking, Mr. Ney said that he would not want we would not want to make the motion for this upcoming year.
For a
Is that
CIO,
correct?
to hire a CIO type of thing. I think that's premature.
Okay, but what we could actually, can I see the motion that we're supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I can technically pass the gavel and make it. I just threw it out there as a conversation starter.
Okay.
And I can't see everyone's hands. Is anyone's hands up that I can't see?
No, not yet.
Okay. It's not that exciting of a motion. I feel like the buildup here is too much.
Oh, well, I think it needs to be specified for data. The word data is not even in there.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how specific. So how would you rephrase it?
To improve data efficiency. For opportunity to standardize, improve data efficiency. Maybe.
Yeah, but I want to leave the term process in there too, because sometimes it's not even data, it's just making sure that the data automates into the right places.
I think that still captures it though.
Okay, Robin, can you add that in?
Is Mr. Nay making the motion? Then I
Yeah,
can
Mr.
add.
Dave, do you mind making the motion?
I move. Let's see. Is this for our committee or for the full board?
Committee to move to the full board.
Okay, I move that the technology committee take the following motion to the board for that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to evaluate current processes and look for opportunities to standardize and improve data efficiency.
Mr. Smith, would you feel like seconding that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can second that as long as we're not putting a time frame there. Yeah, I can second that.
Okay, perfect. Any other discussion on this motion? I appreciate all the feedback. Okay, then I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously, Robin. At least we can start getting the conversation going. That would be, and I do think it falls under our OE. Okay, then the next item on the agenda is esports. Actually, Dyer and I have been talking about esports for a while, but I've had people talking to me about it, and so I wanted to just hear where we were in terms of, do they have the equipment they need? Are they participating in the competitions, or how's that going?
Ms. Boatwright, real quick before you move on, actually, I just address something within that also, within that motion. I remember a while back when we were giving Mr. Day some time. We were giving Mr. Cohan, Mr. Mohan sometimes. Sean, I apologize. I'm screwing over them. Sean sometime, but this also goes back to what we're talking about. I remember with the academics department, as well as when we first got on this committee, we were talking about the menu of what we have in the district in these programs, as Power School and different other programs that certain schools may have that they like, that other schools did not like. So everyone have a different program. So I think that this will also, when we do discussions, bring that discussion to the board, I think this will also help us financially, because we pay for a lot of different programs, and some of these programs do the same function as some programs, but they may work differently on different companies. So I just want to for us to be cognizant that we have already had this conversation in different spectrums on this committee, as well as at the board level as well. So I mean, I just want to bring to bring that up so that we would know that information, and maybe we might want to look over our notes and see where we've talked about that in the past and how this all plays together. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Shohan, were you able to get any information together on equipment for esports, school participation? How many high schools, how many middle schools?
Yes, I interacted with our CAPE department and put together a list of all of our high schools, middle schools, and K through 5 schools that are working with VEX robotics. And I have that list in the main draft for the meeting. It also covers our 2 schools that are currently participating in the Cyber Patriots program. That is a white hat hacker put on by the Department of Defense and DARPA. And what they're doing is it's a recruitment tool for them to look for the brightest kids out there to try to get them into military and government service. identify those kids ahead of time. It's also a great program that teaches the kids a lot about the cybersecurity field and how to interact and how they could go on to be a cybersecurity specialist. Those jobs right now are in huge demand, and I think it's something ridiculous, like we're 1 million shy of them.
Well, and one of the reasons I brought this up too is working in healthcare, and I was talking to this guy, and he was a tech programming our ultrasound equipment, right? So he's in there, and I just like, how'd you get into this field? And he's like, he came out of the military, he was a Marine, and then he's like, and I was a gamer. He got a job doing something in tech. And I hear that pretty frequently, where a lot of people, they're gamers, they get very comfortable with like those kinds of things. And then they start off at a job and they get a certification. Next thing you know, they've got a high paying job, doing some pretty high tech work. And so I guess a little bit, I'm just confused as to why we're having a harder time getting schools to adopt it. I think it's the stigma of games. But if you look at progressive districts that are doing a lot of work in technology, they are pushing esports. Can't remember what school it was, but one of the things they put in their referendums was an esports like pavilion, because so many tech related jobs, and a lot of these jobs you don't need to go to college for. You can get a computer science engineering degree, but these technician jobs, et cetera, it's really a way into it for a lot of kids. So I guess my question is, we only have two schools doing Cyber Patriot, which is really unfortunate, because that is a great program. And we have 6 schools doing, ROTC. So is that an issue of equipment? Is it an issue of just not having the interest?
A lot of it's interest. A lot of it's also getting a staff member that's willing to host and run these clubs. You got to figure a lot of them are doing this after hours on their own time. They're not getting a stipend for it. They're doing it out the goodness of their heart and the willingness to want to promote technology with our students. So it's one of those things that HR is evaluating is their stipend process right now, and they were doing a study on it. So I think we should wait to find out what Ms. Walton finds out through this study to hopefully to increase some of the stipends, because it's hard enough for us to recruit these very technical people to teach our kids, because why would they come teach for what we pay when they can make a lot more in the private sector, unfortunately. So when we do finally get them, we need to find ways to incentivize them as much as possible. I think Beaufort High is also looking to start Cyber Patriots. I was talking with Ralph, and he said he had a couple of schools with interest, but until they officially request it and start the process, it's kind of a waiting game for them. Now, we also have 3 schools that are doing gaming clubs right now. And those are the Hilton Head High just starting theirs, May River High, Bluffton Middle has a part-time gaming club. We also have Beaufort High is looking to create a gaming club. And I think Well Branch High is looking to create a gaming club. We're waiting for people to be identified to run these clubs and to find out how we can help assist them.
Okay. Yeah, because I know like Mr. Dallas is a big proponent of Silicon Garden and all the tech jobs that we want to attract here. So however we can incentivize our students to pursue those degrees seems like it would be a good thing.
I mean, we live in a beautiful low country. We have airports nearby, and we are technically a digital corridor. You can jump on an airplane and go anywhere. So it is a perfect area to promote that kind of digital cyber citizenship and to help generate that kind of interest and to keep our good talent here in the low country.
Colonel Guy has a question.
Oh, thank you. Colonel Guy?
Yeah, Madam Chair, my youngest grandson he's kind of in college now, he doesn't have time for it, but he was a big gamer. I guess it was Fortnite, is that?
Yeah.
That's the game. And we have kids in our schools that are not athletes, they're not musicians, they're not debaters, they're gamers. And they go off by themselves at home, and they sit there in a cubicle at their house in the basement. We don't have basements here, but someplace in the house, and they'll spend hours and hours and hours on these games. Now, what I understand the esports concept is the esports concept is kind of like regular sports after school in a room with a faculty person sponsoring it, proctoring it, and so on, and structures the gaming that they do on their own. But it's so much better in that they're in a room so that they can see each other, talk to each other, and collaborate. And that's what's missing. That's what we don't have. And that's what I'm sure we would have kids in every school that would sign up for that. And again, we're not taking away from sports, we're not taking away from music, we're not taking away from the other clubs, but cybersecurity sounds like a job. And I like them to get in the job, but I like them to hook them in the games. Because once they get hooked in games, then it's easier to get them into, put that to bigger use. And that's what I see as a lacking a program that I just, from what my grandsons tell me, they would have lots of kids that would participate in that. And I think that's where you and I have had a conversation about that, about what goes on in colleges as a gaming sport. It's not, it's something that they do off campus or on campus, but it's not a course that they take. It's a social thing. It's like intramural athletics for those that like that.
And I know I see Mr. Dallas's hand, but just on that note, up at Northwestern, they have these bars now going in, or like they're kind of like with huge, because they're trying to make it more social, which I think is also an important thing. Mr. Dallas?
Yes, I just would like to support the gaming idea. In our extended family, we have one little 14-year-old, and you go to his house and he's in his room, and his parents call him out to say hello to his visiting relatives or whatever. And he is actually playing Fortnite games with people from all over the world. And I think the beauty of that is it lets them know that there are lots of other societies out there that are advancing their technological skills at a very rapid pace. And I think it helps prepare them for the world that they're going to encounter and live in and compete in. So I think this is a huge area to be, I'm just following up and supporting what everyone else has said. So that's it. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Shohan. Thank you, Mr. Dallas.
It's pretty amazing at some of the companies now designing these purpose-built rooms. They're integrating not only the technology gaming side of the house, but they're also integrating the videography side. And they're recording these games, and they're having kids out what they're calling shoutcasting, where they basically are commentating and kind of letting the spectators know what's going on, and they're pretty lively. And there's a big demand for that right now.
So, Mr. Shohan, I guess then the question is, when we did men's volleyball, we budgeted $200,000 for it in the budget, and every school has a men's volleyball team, right? I mean, it wasn't sort of like, do we have interest? Do we have students? I feel like, and I know that we've talked about this, I feel like I think there's some destigmatization that has to go on with gaming, that it's not just kids in a basement, doing stuff. These kids, I have one kid that's a big gamer and one kid that's a light gamer. They build their own PCs because they want the special, and so it's teaching them so much stuff. And like I said, I just hear it over and over again in healthcare technology, that the people that are getting into it, they're not necessarily college graduates, but they're gamers, they're ex-military, and then they get certifications. So there's two things, I think. One, why can't we get the same approach to men's volleyball, which is a great sport, but why can't we have that same approach with esports? And then there has to be, again, we go back to standardization, equipment, right? Because that's, what equipment do you need to have? Right now, it's sort of balancing on the edge of a desk, an older PC. Can we get, like, here's the equipment, a minimum equipment you would need to run a successful esports club, and make sure that if a school wants to start one, that they can get that equipment? Because it is a little bit more You don't have, every kid has their own computer, but you need what, 5, maybe 3 to 5 rigs that can do all the things these games require. Is that right?
But you have a couple of tiers. Usually you have at least 5 people on a team. You would need 5 computers that had a little bit better video and graphics capability to run Overwatch and a couple of the other games that they play competitive. But then there's also some of the other games they play that you wouldn't need that. You could use a little bit lighter computer. So you could have a couple of setups. One of the biggest things is there has to be a dedicated space for it. Generally speaking, these are after-school clubs that get shoved in an area, and you're talking very expensive equipment that needs to be, set up and arranged properly, and then kept safe. So it's not quite that easy, especially in some of our schools south of the Broad where we have space issues. So that's another issue we need to look to address.
Would it be possible to bring back to our next meeting in a month or two, sort of what we would need to do, just like some recommendations of like, okay, if you want an esports club, here's what you need to have. Oh, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. The camera swings around, so I don't see everybody all the time.
No problem. I like the idea. I have some concerns in terms of this, and also we're talking about money right now and funding. My question is, where does this fall off into the district's mission? Because I'm concerned right now in terms of that we need to getting things in line with what we have going on. That this is, for one, technology. This is definitely going to cost, and we have to ask ourselves in terms of the district statement and the district goals. Where does I heard you mentioned the volleyball as in sports and what was that process in establishing those 5 volleyball teams. And I would say that for that same thing here. How does this line up with the district goals in terms of the current goals that we already have, and how is this committee helping them to successfully accomplish those goals that we have before adding this right here, just adding a different programming?
Well, I think, what I've observed, and I think what Mr. Shohan's observed in the tech world, is that a lot of people are coming into the technology field through gaming as a child. The gaming aspect, to Mr. Geyer's point, is definitely trying to improve socialization, teamwork, the soft skills that you need for technology, as opposed to being alone in your basement. I will say why I think it specifically ties in. If you look at the mission of Beaufort County School District, which is through a personalized learning approach, we'll prepare graduates who compete and succeed in an ever-changing global society and career marketplace. I can't think of anything that ties in more directly to that than getting kids involved in technology. I mean, I really can't. That's where all the jobs are going to be. Healthcare. The CEO of NVIDIA, which is now I think a $2 trillion, has a greater GDP than Saudi Arabia, said that if he were to start over in a career, he would go into health sciences, not biology, but looking at it from like an engineering tech standpoint. So if you're going to have an ultrasound technician, rather than having someone that's a health science major, you need someone who's a gamer who can crack into the system and patch all the software. So I think it really, in my opinion, I'm pushing it a little bit because I hear about it a lot in the community. I have kids who are gamers. I see kids in college that are gamers, but also just talking to people in being in a tech environment and saying, how'd you get into this field? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, I was a gamer as a kid. That is honestly one of the first things out of their mouth. And then they kind of got this job and fell into it, and they grew into the technology. So to me, I think people they think video games is a distraction from education, and it certainly can be. So can basketball and baseball. Those sorts of things can also be a distraction from education, but they're also teaching you things. And I think that is, if you were to look at where careers are in the future, is going to be a huge need. To Mr. Shohan's point, cybersecurity, we're 100 million jobs short. So I just want to know, like, what we can do to educate the public that is resistant on the idea of school-based computer games, educate people about what the career paths are for people that have an interest in technology and working with those sorts of things and working with software, and then what it would take to put esports clubs into, and say, just like we did with volleyball, and said, here's the money, we're going to have a stipend, we're going to make it a thing, and every school is going to do it, rather than sort of when the school decides they want to do it, do they have the equipment, do they have the space? I'd like to see like a product that we could offer. But all I'm asking for is if Mr. Shohan could bring back something to the next meeting saying, here's what you would need to have that.
And I do hear what you're saying, and I do hear the statement that you read off from the district's website or wherever you've got it from. But in terms of the mission and technology is definitely ever evolving, and technology is definitely taking over this nation that we live in, this country. But in terms of how moving forward, and once we do decide, I'm hoping that we are finding a way how we are bringing a reason in terms of bringing this forward, and that is it is actually it will not take money from the educational process. Bringing this forward in terms of something else. And I do understand the technology piece of it, but I just have still a couple of concerns about that, but nonetheless.
I think it's good to have some concerns for sure, and we can certainly address them moving forward. Mr. Nay?
Thank you. So I just to play devil's advocate in here. First of all, I'm a little bit of a giver myself. I like RPGs myself, but does it appear to anybody else to seem like we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth? Because we're looking to institute policies for against cell phones because screen time interrupting class and all that kind of stuff. But yet we're going to promote screen time on games. I don't know. It almost seems like I don't know. It just seems odd to me. I agree in that yes, the technology is beneficial, but it just seems like, you know, on one hand, we're telling our community that that phones are a problem because the screen time is interruptive during class and disruptive. But let's promote screen time during esports. It just seems weird to me.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think teaching kids to do video editing is an appropriate function for a school? Multimedia?
Well, yeah, sure.
Because social media that's what all that is TikTok. So to me, it's sort of the same thing. It's that I think we need to teach kids responsible screen use. And I think we need to teach them that there's an appropriate time and place. But I also think that these are the skill sets. I don't think being on your phone during class is a skill set. That's a distraction. In fact, the skill is how to avoid distractions, because we do have kids now that will go out on job interviews and take text messages during a job interview. So we need to teach them. So basically the screens are here whether we want them or not. So how do we leverage the screen and teach appropriate use and, you know, turn it into a positive? So I don't think it's exactly two different things, because to me, the cell phone issue is just, we've got to stop distracting kids during class and having those behavioral disruptions.
But you can play Fortnite on your phone.
Yeah, so get rid of the phones in class. Don't do it during class, man. Do it at the esports club.
Madam Chair,
What's the guy's hand?
when I go to the high schools and I walk down the halls, I watch class changes, and I look at the students and I say, there's a cheerleader, there's a football player, there's a basketball player, there's a band person. And then I look at this 5'6", 110-pound young man, and I say, what's he doing? What do we got for him? I just want to find things for kids, extracurricular, social programs for everyone. And that's a niche. I realize that. But those are people we're losing. Those are people that are not in this, going to the pep rallies and in the schools and doing that rah-rah stuff. And so are we providing the soft skills? Are we providing the socializations? And that's why having them in a group of let's say it, I call them computer geeks, a geek squad that's in there geeking around together rather than being at the home in isolation. When we invest, look at what we invest in football. We invest a hell of a lot of money in football. We invest a hell of a lot of money in travel for soccer and for lacrosse and swimming. And my grandkids all played with that, and they were there and they had a great time. But what about that other kid? We don't offer crap for them. We don't have anything around here for them socially. There's no roller skating rinks. There's no nothing. And that's what bothers me. And I see it every time I'm in the middle school, every time I'm in the high school. I pick out those folks. What are we doing for them? And the answer, zero. So that's just philosophical.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
And I do agree with Mr. Geyer in those terms about there's nothing, and I'm just sitting here and just pondering and thinking, and at this point, I think this is probably even a conversation. We had a community meeting and we were talking about some of this stuff. I think this is something that this may be. I think this conversation could be even bigger than people who were just sitting in this meeting. I think that they basically the county has a new Parks and Recreation director. And I think that there's possibly money out there that maybe we may need to team up with them, and maybe they can help us out with some finances, and maybe we can do it together and create a safe space for these students. And there may be a way to do it, but I think that the conversation it could start here. Maybe it needs to manifest, and so in some other places as well. So and if continued, I think that we should have the Parks and Recreation director at the table as well too, because at one point in time, I do remember when Parks and Recreation in the district basically was hand in hand, and we both utilized our fundings and our facilities together to support one another. And I think we want to get back to it because it takes a village, and they are part of our village. And as Mr. Geyer said, there are a lot of different things that these kids don't have, and we all must work together to make sure that they do have it. It is upon us that we do that. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. All right, well, unless there's an objection, if Mr. Stohan can come back next time and just give us a little more structured discussion about it. Sounds like there's at least an interest in having that conversation about it.
So just to get this correct, you want an equipment list to basically get a school set up with an esports program.
Yeah, what would we need? There had to be something like that with volleyball, right? Like we need a net, we need a stipend for a teacher.
And there's I can give you a couple of tiers, because there's the basic tier to get by in a club. There's the next step up to more of an intramural, and then there's a full blown out shoutcasting arena.
Yeah, don't forget the shoutcaster.
That's right. With the program that replaced Naviance from Power School, data, looking at longitudinal data predictions software, and still standardizing forms. So I do have a good list for next meeting.
Sounds good. And the other thing, can you add to that list? We haven't talked about it yet, but did we ever get our state technology plan? I know you were working on it, and then you're working on our individual. Do we have something that you can show us at the next meeting, do you think?
No, one thing we do is we have the strategic pillars document that's about to be completed by the district. And that was one of the documents that we were going to follow, because we used to follow the standard district plan, and then we had a technology plan. And since that's kind of changed, I know Nick Flowers is working on the strategic pillars and a team, so those should be done fairly shortly.
Okay. That's something we have talked about for a while because they embargoed it or got rid of it or something. Okay. Any other issues to bring up or agenda items for next time?
Are you future topics right now?
Yeah, we're done with the agenda, right? Because we don't have a motion coming out about esports. I just kind of wanted to see where we were at.
Okay, also, and today, Mrs. Sherman was supposed to bring something with sports, she was saying, an update that you want to prepare to do, what was she saying?
We were talking about the
The esports, the athletics, I've been working, Ms. Beckham Varsky and myself have been working with Coach Cave to try to get a better understanding of all the different forms our athletic departments have used. And we're trying to find any opportunities we can to digitize them, make it easier on the staff members, make it easier on the parents, make it more accessible to the community. And just any ways we can to find little ways to help better the school district.
And all sports in terms of?
Yeah, we're starting with athletics. So we're gonna go through, since Coach Cave's athletic director, we're starting with athletics. And we're gonna look at all the athletic forms and concentrate on that, and then we'll move to the next department.
Okay, thanks for that, that's what I wanted to. Also, I do have a topic I would like to, in terms of communications, I'm the technology department, I would like to know what does Mr. Shohan department looks like. I know with technology, you have different departments amongst your technology. You have I'm sure you have like a cell phone department and you have different things. You have people at the school level. I would like to know what does that exactly look like and how many people we have working in our district technology department.
I can bring up organization.
Yeah, right, there you go. An organizational chart and what each department is doing.
You've done that before, we can bring that.
Yeah, we
back.
have one from like 18 months ago, but maybe there's an update to it.
Okay, yeah, well, y'all like to see the organizational chart and what that looks like.
Sure, I know we've got a few new people in the department, so I can update that for you.
Okay.
Okay, anything else from anybody else? All right.
When is your next meeting, or do I just?
I think when Mr. Shohan has some stuff together to present, we'll do something during the summer. You know, right now it doesn't seem like we should put anything on the agenda unless you guys feel differently.
Yes, actually, I think that you said that you don't want to have a meeting.
Well, I was gonna say wait till he has stuff that he's ready to present.
Together.
Because right now we're ending school and we're starting summer projects, we're starting summer school. It's kind of a real crazy time for our department right now. Right now and at the very start of school is like two of the busiest couple of months for the department. So we just needed a little bit more time so we can concentrate on getting the devices ready to do summer school in the new school year. But we're going to continuously work on that through the summer. But as soon as I get more stringent data that I can bring, it's something that actually is hardcore, makes sense. I'll bring all that forward and can give you different times that we can meet. Hopefully we can have one next month, but next month's going to be a little rough, but hopefully I'll get the data. A lot of it depends on other team members too, because I know Coach K's been pretty busy because they've been doing a lot of the banquets and stuff for a lot of the end of sports season. So he's been running all around and it's been hard for him to get with us and set aside some time, but he wants to do it too, because this is going to save his coaches and the different school staff a lot of time when it comes to getting this forms prepared, knowing that his coach has the right form signed to make sure that kid can play in that tournament or whatever.
Right. And what else do you have to do?
The first one was standardizing forms. Look at the program that replaced Naviance. Naviance was a Power School purchase program that basically tracks some of the high school scholarship information. An equipment list to set up a school with the esports program with a couple of options, a basic option and a little bit nicer option, and then bring in the organizational chart updated for technology.
Sounds like a plan. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, so we'll adjourn by unanimous consent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.